fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hair to Stephen King. That's right, the twice weekly show that will be returning to its twice weekliness now that we have finally finished the arduous process. That was Castle Rock. Bienvenidos, welcome to the horror show, and yes, you can just call me Fuego for short. And, you know, initially I had a different idea for this Saturday video, but, you know, I just, I had it brewing in my blood to just finally get done with all of the ranking videos, decade by decade, for Sai King. Sai King being my favorite author, as you can see by this tower, haha, of books that are right behind me. And so, yeah, you know, I've already done the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and for me, the 2000s for Mr. El Rey, as I so affectionately call him, was basically like the redemption tour of sorts. He decided to finish after that accident all of his Dark Tower stuff, and he kind of got his groove back following the accident that nearly took his life, regrettably. We are so very thankful that Sai King is still with us, and yes, a very happy 71st birthday to him just yesterday. I had a birthday 2 days ago, so I have to give a grande gracias to all who had kind words on both, you know, well, the evil social medias, the Facebooks and stuff like that, as it's so affectionately called by some. And to the entire Hail to Stephen King quartet, I love y'all so very much, and it just brings me such warmth in my heart to know that, yeah, we are all on this path together and enjoying just amazing literature from the man who, yes, 71 years young, because age is a state of mind, and that's what I kind of kept trying to tell myself this past week, you know, as I celebrated a cumpleaños myself. But I say we just jump right into the proceedings, because I gotta go headbang my ass off at Thrice tonight, one of my absolute favorite bands. And, you know, I have to at least mention a couple honorables real quick, for the sheer fact that I'm not really factoring them in with the ranking system because of the fact that they were 3 non-fictions that King put out. So first we have to give a shout out to Faithful. Faithful is the book that King co-wrote with Stuart O'Nan, I want to say, as I look here on the shelfy shelf. Yes, that's right, Stuart O'Nan, who was a, I'm not sure if he still is, but he was a beat writer with the Boston Red Sox, the beloved Red Sox for Sai King, and they were a long-suffering franchise, a long-suffering city, in fact, for not being able to, you know, just like get that proverbial monkey off their back, and, you know, so on and so forth. But yeah, it was a pivotal year that King kind of covered along with Stewart. And, you know, King is a diehard baseball fan. I would personally rather watch paint dry than baseball, but you know, as you see my, you know, Sun Devil stuff here, Sun Devil football, yo, forks up, represent. But yeah, so it was essentially King covering the entire season, and that was the year with the Bloody Sock, with you know, Mr. Schilling, and who used to play with the Arizona Diamondbacks here and helped us win a title. But yeah, coming back against the Yankees, those evil Yankees, there's really, for me, only a few sports franchises that I absolutely loathe. Sorry if I'm offending anybody here, but Los Angeles Lakers, Dallas Cowboys, New York Yankees, and well, Mexico soccer. But you know, for me, it's just especially with you know, the 3 major franchises that I mentioned earlier, it's like they have prestige and they have notoriety, and they just kind of throw money at it and hope the situation figures itself out, LeBron James. But yeah, so that's, you know, it was very cool to finally see the redemption of the Red Sox and everything. And so have to give a shout out to King being one of the faithful and supporting his team as they finally got back to prominence. And I think they have the best record in baseball right now, so they could very well be on their way to another World Series title. A couple more honorables, and these are like kind of corresponding releases. So Secret Windows was some unreleased stuff that King put out. It was interviews, it was a couple old stories and things like that. It's okay, you know, it's not of my absolute favorite, but it's an interesting bit of insight into, you know, Sai King and, you know, just his process. And it's almost like the bonus features on the main feature, which is On Writing. On Writing is actually amazing if y'all have never got the chance to check it out, especially the audiobook where King reads it himself. He talks about his childhood, his upbringing, his beloved mother, things like that, and just the humble kind of beginnings that he started out at, and just to kind of work his way up and everything is pretty dope. And then besides being an autobiography, the second half is him giving a little bit of tutelage and insight and I guess some suggestion towards preparation and things of that nature. If you want to in fact be a writer yourself, On Writing is tremendous, and I absolutely adore it, especially as a Sai King fan. It's very fun and very cool to, just kind of pull the curtains back and get a little bit of details into the extent of his process, which is pretty dope. But yeah, so now as we jump into the ranking proper, and this is where everybody probably knows what the last thing is, what the bottom of the barrel is. It's my least favorite Sai King book, and it's notorious at this point. I've had some peeps say, oh, no, Bag of Bones is great, Dreamcatcher is great. No, Dreamcatcher is not great. It's one of those where, Skull King N14, Dreamcatcher, in last place. It's, I really feel like it was King grasping for straws, trying his damnedest to get, back into the groove in the process. After he was initially run over by that Bastardo, who has since, passed this mortal plane to the clearing at the end of the path and such, he said that he wasn't going to write anymore. He had initially considered very, very deeply retirement. He was messed up on all the meds and everything, and he just really didn't know where the inspiration was going to come from. So much pain and all of that stuff. But, while he was in the recovery process, he freehand. So he actually wrote this book by hand. It's bloated. It's, as I've said on here countless times, if you want good King sci-fi, you go to the Tommyknockers, even if people have mixed feelings about that one too. Dreamcatcher though, and the film adaptation especially, when you consider the fact that Lawrence Kasdan and the amazing cast that they put together, from Thomas Jane to Jason Lee and Morgan Freeman as Kurtz and all these different things, Kurtz being a Heart of Darkness reference. Love Heart of Darkness, by the way, and to a lesser degree, Apocalypse Now. But yeah, it just it's never done it for me. I don't know, the stuff with Duddits, and it's a book that I really I don't like hating on King stuff. So it's really the camaraderie amongst the friends is cool, and it's fun getting some little dairy, like in references, wink, wink, wink. But for the most part, yeah, I don't know. The fact that it was a shit monster kind of, that was the epiphany that King had. He was like taking a crap one day, and he's like, what if I had blood in my stool, and what would that mean? He was originally going to call this book Cancer. His wife thankfully dissuaded him and was like, no, you are not going to do that. So thank you, Tabi, for being on Team King there. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Dreamcatcher, so as opposed to beating it like a red-headed dead horse, I will just leave it be and say that clocking in last place in the 2000s ranking, number 14, Dreamcatcher. Number 13 is, it's the last Bachman book that we have had. It's called Blaze. And, it's not per se a bad book. At least for me, has more enjoyable aspects to it than Dreamcatcher. But, you have a slightly, retarded, disabled, I guess would be the more PC term, like bandit thief, like small-time crook of sorts, if I'm going to make that Woody Allen reference. And yeah, he's seeing his dead friend who was just very overbearing and constantly demeaned him and stuff like that. There's a baby kidnapping involved in it, but it's an old book that King had locked in a drawer that he decided to retool and release as a Bachman book. It's not as mean-spirited as the predominance of the Bachman material, but I must say it's not particularly compelling for me. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, when you compare the drawer books of King, when you think about this compared to something like Pet Sematary that he didn't release because he thought it was so effed up, this one I kind of feel like he just never released it based on quality. And anytime I go to the Savers, the Goodwills, any of the secondhand stores, I always see lots of copies of Blaze. It's not really one that people are supremely inclined to hold on to. So I guess I will approach this with the fine-fingered, fine-toothed comb, whatever the hell the terminology is, and just say I'm not the biggest fan of Blaze. And yes, it clocks in at number 13. So jumping on to number 12, this is one that that my lady really enjoys the adaptation of it, where they went all kinds of batshit crazy. But Under the Dome is one that, you know, I'm much more compelled at the idea of the cannibals in the high-rise, which is where this, like, the whole book initially sprouted from. That's what I would really like to read. Because Under the Dome, with the exception of Barbie being kind of an intriguing protagonist, I should say, I don't know, Big Jim, he's okay. You know, Junior is a little son of a bitch. They changed so much for the TV series. TV series is not that bad early on. I've watched the first season. Lily's gone on to watch, you know, 2 and 3 and stuff, and has kind of given me some play-by-play about how nutsoid things get. But I don't know, man. Intriguing concept, but poor execution. All of the stuff with, like, the meth lab and, you know, I don't know. It's interesting as the bunker concept that it is, of everybody being just trapped and resources eventually running out and stuff like that. But unlike something like The Stand, where I really enjoyed this lengthy laundry list of characters and stuff like that, Under the Dome suffers from the same problem that Sleeping Beauties did for me, where it was a dope concept and just, I don't know, the execution didn't do it for me, and I didn't find the predominance of the characters particularly compelling. So once again, as opposed to ragging on it, I will just say Under the Dome at number 12 in this 2000s ranking system. So jumping into number 11, we have the Colorado Kid. Shout out to my Colorado lady there. You know, the Colorado Kid was developed into this lengthy series called Haven that I still haven't given a chance at. There's really, as far as stuff loosely adapted from Sai King, I haven't watched The Dead Zone yet, and I haven't watched Haven. Those are two that are on the list. If you guys would actually like to see those covered here on Hail to Stephen King, yeah, it's on the agenda, but there's no, like, imperative aspect to watching them. So if you think they're dope and I should give them the time of day, please mention that in the comments, or, you know, say something on the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group. But it's a very thin little hard case crime paperback. There's a dead body that's found on this beach, and it's an interesting dynamic between this younger girl who is, like, kind of newer to the detective force and this older gentleman. They have an intriguing dynamic, but I don't know, from what I've heard, the TV series basically has them going on other cases and, you know, doing more things and stuff like that, and kind of tries to keep that vibe going, but it's filled with Easter eggs galore. So I don't know, the Colorado Kid, while I kind of enjoyed it, it's one that I need to give a reread to because it was very forgettable. As far as the hard case crime stuff goes, I always will pick Joyland over the Colorado Kid, because Colorado Kid just didn't leave its imprint on me, and I think that King really, he perfected the, like, detective stuff much more so with the Bill Hodges trilogy in comparison. So jumping along to the first presumably controversial number in this ranking, at number 10 I have the short story collection Everything's Eventual. Now, that's not to say that I don't enjoy certain stories in it. I mean, one of my absolute favorite stories of Roland, it's a Dark Tower kind of like side story, The Little Sisters of Eluria. It was developed into an incredible comic book by Marvel when they were doing all the Dark Tower stuff, which they still are, but, you know, they've lost a lot of the creative team, and yeah, quality has waned a little bit. But I love Little Sisters, man. It is one of the absolute best of the Dark Tower stories for me. It's very cool in the fact that it's young Roland, but it's a solo young Roland as opposed to having the pre-tet, the older quartet of, you know, Burton, Elaine, and stuff like that. But yeah, him and finding another love besides you know, Susan, Ms. Delgado. It's a great story. I mean, vampire nurses and stuff. It's super cool. And there's other great ones in there. I love Man in the Black Suit. That one is very, very good, about this kid who sees, and he's, like, hanging out, like, fishing by this little river and stuff, or, like, stream or whatever, and this guy who very well might be Randall Flagg or just some other evil presence shows up, and, like, he runs scared. It's super cool. Autopsy Room 4 is interesting, about the guy who is basically playing possum. He's not quite dead. And I love the title story, you know. Dinky Earnshaw is a character that plays a very big part in Dark Tower 7, and so that's why I've urged Lily and lots of other, you know, friends who are on that path of the beam of soaking up everything Dark Tower related. Everything's Eventual is a very cool story about a very bright kid who is recruited by this, well, he's basically recruited by, you know, Ted and stuff. So, 1408 is also good, Right in the Bullet is good, even Lucky Quarter is good. They did a pretty decent adaptation of that for the Nightmares and Dreamscapes television series that was on TNT. But I don't know, there's just a lot of stories in that particular book that I don't find very compelling. I mean, Road Virus Heads North is okay, but as opposed to like slogging on all of the bad ones, I'm going to say that as far as collections of Sai King stuff goes, you will see in the ranking system what I prefer much more so in this particular decade for Sai King. So jumping from number 10 to number 9, we have another big DT tie-in for you Tower junkies, which is Black House. Black House is the sequel to The Talisman that is nowhere near as good. It doesn't capture the same sort of like whimsy and wonder of Jack Sawyer being a kid. You know, it just doesn't. You know, he's an esteemed detective. You know, King really got into this detective stuff. There is a nasty serial murderer. There is this house that just emanates evil that is kind of like a doorway. It does lay some significant groundwork for stuff with the Breakers and for why gifted children are being taken. So that actually kind of ties in with Wolves and the fact that, you know, people with this sort of psychic ability are being taken to Thunderclap and they're being used to, you know, break these beams that hold everything Tower related together. I will admit though, I really like the ending of this particular book, but as a whole, it's a little long and it's really, as much as I adore The Talisman, it was kind of a letdown. So hopefully when, you know, King and Straub get together to write that 3rd volume that they keep hinting at, you know, things will be just a little bit more intriguing. So jumping to number 8, we have my least favorite of the Dark Tower books, although it's kind of neck and neck between this one and Drawing of the Three. Sorry, peeps. But yeah, Song of Susanna, it's a bridging book in a lot of ways. And whereas Wolves is very compelling, and despite its shortcomings, you know, Dark Tower 7 is very satisfying in a lot of ways once you finally get to the tower. But yeah, Song of Susanna, I don't know. It's never done it for me. You know, the stuff with Susanna actually, you know, going back and forth with this crazed presence that has kind of taken her over. It just, I don't know. And the stuff where King puts himself into the book, where, you know, Roland and Eddie go and visit him. It just, I'm trying not to spoil anything here in this ranking system and just kind of briefly skim through and whatnot. But yeah, Song of Susanna, it feels it's a necessary step between Wolves and the final chapter, but it feels rushed. I think it's the shortest Dark Tower book since the very first one, so that kind of tells you something. But I do like the stanzas that they kind of sequence everything in with this particular volume. But I don't know, it's you get to the Dixie Pig, and I guess stuff is kind of interesting. Callahan really shows his cojones. But yeah, without spoiling anything, that is most definitely my number 8, Song of Susanna. And ironically, at number 7, we jump into the Dark Tower 7, the final volume of, well, not the final volume, the last in the chronological order, but, you know, he did publish, went through the Keyhole 4.5 a few years after this. But yeah, Dark Tower 7 is bloated and boring in a lot of ways. The big battle that goes down is just okay to me. That's where a particular character is lost, which is really sad. But then even like the scaled back stuff where other characters are lost, I don't know, it just has never done it for me. The stuff with Dandelo is okay. It's just, some people have told me it's supposed to be long and plotting because it's supposed to epitomize the length of his journey, and I don't know, getting to the Crimson King Castle is okay. When you finally get to the tower, that's very cool, and that's where everything kind of caused wheel, right? For everybody who has read knows, so that stuff is good. But as a whole, I don't know. It's a lackluster finale to a series that I adore so very much without slogging on it too much further. Jumping to number 6. Number 6 is actually Sai King's favorite book that he has ever written, or so he says, at least at this particular point in his career, and that's Lisi's story. Lisi's story is about a woman who is trying her damnedest to pick up the pieces after her brilliant husband has passed away. And there is an obsessive fan aspect, stalker kind of thing, which is a little weird. I'm not so fond of that particular area. What I'm really fond of in this story is the hopeless romantic within me, and yes, I am melodramatic at times, and just a little too emotional, you know. But that's, you know, that's my framework, you know. Those who bleed and, you know, and the heart on their sleeves. My sleeve is choked with the blood of my heart. Blah blah blah. Kind of silly, but you know, for those who love hard as I do, it's you can really just feel the genuine connection, as King describes, between, you know, Lisi and her husband, and just, it's so weird in the fact that he envisioned what it would be like if he passed away and then Tavi had to go into his office and look at all of his things and, you know, packing everything up and, you know, picking up all the fallen pieces after, you know, somebody of talent and esteem and notoriety has left this plane and once again gone on to, you know, the clearing at the end of the path. It's a sweet book, but it's a really sad book, and I don't know, sadness for me often is one of the more genuine emotions than happiness, which, and that's really me pulling the curtain back here, but it's true though. I mean, some of the most beautiful songs are the saddest songs in comparison with like happy-go-lucky, la-di-da, whateverness. And so Lisi's story, it's tragic and it's terrific. It really is, and I can't recommend it enough. I'm very shocked that it hasn't been adapted yet, especially in the current king-assance of all these things being made into films and just about every property being optioned, and yet this one somehow is still not finding its way to the screen. It's a little weird for me. Number 5 is one that it was an elusive cemetery dance that I finally tracked down. It's a car book that I prefer to Uncle Otto's Truck, or whatever that one is called, and I prefer it to Christine. We are talking From a Buick 8. From a Buick 8 is basically, imagine if, so the Low Men, you know, from Hearts in Atlantis, imagine if one of their crazy Crimson King powered vehicles or whatever was abandoned and taken into police impound, and all of the insanity that would entail. Imagine if the trunk was like a Lovecraftian doorway thingy of craziness. That's kind of the flavor that you're getting in this. It's a little discombobulating for some to read because of the fact that it jumps around the timeline and stuff, and so it's not told chronologically, but it's still very cool in all of the different, I mean, craziness that transpires just from this vehicle sitting for years and years in this impound. And once again, Cemetery did a terrific job with the artwork. I mean, goodness Lord, it was so very good. The long deceased artist, whose name is unfortunately eluding me at this particular moment, but yeah, From a Buick 8 is super dope, and without spoiling too much, it's not for everybody, but it's up there for a reason with me, and I hope all of you give it the proper chance to be checked out. It's actually one that I really want to reread now that I finally obtained that CD release. Number 4, yes, Quattro, y'all. Wolves of the Calla. I love 2/3 of this book, I'll admit. The back half is where they started to lose me with, you know, the sneeches or snitches or whatever. I mean, basically, once they got into all of the Harry Potter stuff and the Doctor Doom stuff, and what you found out the wolves to actually be, you know, coming from Thunderclap and everything, the ones who had been stealing these kids for so long, that's where they kind of lost me. But I adore the Father Callahan stuff, especially getting all that backstory. Someone saved my life tonight. I'm not as into, you know, like trying to, you know, get the lot and everything where the roses growing. That stuff is just okay, but just, you see Roland really develop so much as a character in this particular book. Like 4, 4.5, and 5 are where you just really see him come out of his shell and really start to love and care. And yeah, Andy's a funny character, the crazy robot and stuff. And this is where you learn so much more about, you know, just the tech corporation that they're, you know, putting together and everything. And you know, I don't know. It's a very good book most of the way, but it's also a little bloated and stuff. But I do like all the stuff with the root children and, you know, the whole twinny aspect and stuff, and, you know, kids being brought back like a shell of themselves. I think that's pretty dope. So yeah, it's a terrific book, and for me, it's the last great Dark Tower book, even if I feel like it kind of fell apart in the back half just a wee bit. We are jumping to number 3 now, and many are probably going to be fairly shocked at how highly I have ranked this book, but I adore so. I think Cell is fantastic. It's King's homage to George Romero, as he says in the, you know, like little foreword and stuff like that. And yeah, imagine if there was a pulse sent out and everybody with a cell phone just went that shizzle crazy. We're talking like The Crazies, you know, the Romero film, which I actually, dare I say, I like the remake with Timothy Olyphant better. But yeah, guys, it's a terrific book, and you know, this guy trying to find his son, trying to get up north from Boston. I love the crazy professor character. There is the death of a character in this that hit me in the feels so hard, especially because it didn't fit into the context of the crazy post-apocalyptic shizzle that's going down. It's just random and sad and doesn't even fit in with, you know, like how you think a character would die. Yeah, it's good. I'm very mad that King decided to change the ending in the manner in which that he did. John Cusack kind of mails it in this one compared to, like, you know, how great he was in 1408. Not so good in this, and they did change the context of Samuel L. Jackson's character greatly, in fact, or, well, not significantly, but, you know, pretty sizably. So I don't know. Cell, though, is one that I sing its praises constantly for the sheer fact that I think it's criminally underrated. Very much so. We are jumping to number 2 now, and this is one that I have sung the praises of countless times. I just did the anniversary earlier this year for its 10 years with Doomakey. I love Doomakey. Very much so for Wireman, but you know, I just envision aspects like, first and foremost, things taking place somewhere aside from, you know, like Maine, the New England area that King is so fond of going to. He puts this one in Florida, you know, which is interesting. And, you know, gentleman gets, you know, his arm lost in this accident. It deals with phantom limb syndrome. It's a terrific book. It is a little on the long side, and it does go to some tropes, and unfortunately it does have things like, you know, going to the lair of the baddie and everything, which we've seen in everything from Insomnia to It to even most recently The Outsider. But I don't know, I really just like this book for doing something drastically different. I like the artistic aspect to it of, you know, just feeling compelled to paint and create and all of that. It's such a good book, man. I mean, it's a great book. I can't sing the praises of Doomakey enough. If you want a little bit more information about it, definitely jump on my 10-year anniversary review where I go into just a little bit more detail. But Wireman for the win, y'all. Seriously, muchacho. He is the shiznit bam. Without further ado, my number 1 from the 2000s. It is a Bram Stoker winner, and for me, rightfully so. We are talking Just After Sunset, my favorite Sai King book from the 2000s, from that decade. There are so many great stories in this. It starts off with a haunting, chilling, just bit of amazing romanticism in Willa. I adore Willa. It is it's up there. It's in my top 3 maybe, or maybe 5 or something. I'm trying to remember the exact ranking system I had for my Stephen King short stories, but Willa just gets me so much because it's about love just transcending so much, and I adore stories that do that, whether it's, you know, The Fountain, love transcending time and space and, you know, and life in a lot of ways is just such a beautiful thing. And this collection of stories really just, it reeks, in my opinion, of the post 9/11 world. Everything changed so drastically. There's a lot of stories that tie in directly with 9/11, actually. You've got the things they left behind. You've got, you know, New York Times and bargain rates and stuff like that. Those directly tie in with the attack and stuff, and just how people deal with it afterwards, with something so monumentally frightening and horrible. And then even something like Graduation Afternoon, where you're like, okay, this is the state of the world we live in and the inevitability of nuclear warfare and stuff like that. That is a terrifyingly chilling story. And then you also have something like, you know, like N, which is awesome and made into an amazing comic by Marvel. I cannot sing the praises of that novella enough. It's about just is insanity contagious? Can it be? You know, it's really compelling to me in that aspect. You know, can just that seed be planted, and can somebody become obsessive, and, you know, just everything that ties in with that. It's such an awesome and scary story. genuinely scary story. And then even something like A Very Tight Place about, you know, the like property warfare and the guy being like, you know, locked in the porta potty and stuff. Like, I really struggle to find a really weak story in this. I'm not so big on the gingerbread man, gingerbread woman, whatever it is, you know, where the girl's jogging on the beach and stuff. But I mean, for the most part, this has stories that have affected me so profoundly, you know, Willa especially, that I cannot say how much I love Just After Sunset. And once again, it's a Bram Stoker winner for a reason, unlike that Bag of Bones stuff, which you're going to see me next Saturday talking about here on the first live Hail to Stephen King back on YouTube, because we just got our streaming privileges back. Oh, sucker, I can't tell you how happy that makes Cecil and myself and, you know, the entire team, just to have that capability back again. So for anybody who was in the midst of reading it, or, you know, maybe wants to, you know, plow through it in the next week, yes, Bag of Bones is going to be the live episode of Hail to Stephen King that we are doing next Saturday, the 29th, I think it is. So Saturday, September 29th, here at 7 Pacific Standard Time, 1900 hours, haha. Yeah, that's when that is going to be going down. So just to plow through my ranking once more for a little reminder for everybody, we've got Dreamcatcher at 14. We have Blaze, the Bachman book, at number 13, which I kind of think maybe shouldn't stay in the drawer. Under the Dome is number 12. Even if, you know, my lovely lady loves the series, it's still, it's okay. At number 11, we have The Colorado Kid. At number 10, we have Everything's Eventual. Not one of my favorite short story collections, guys. Sorry, even if it has Little Sisters in it. At number 9, we have Black House. I'm hoping the third entry with Straub will be better. At number 8, we have my least favorite of the Dark Tower books, but that doesn't mean that it's not an important step in the process along the path of the beam, and that's Song of Susanna. At number 7, we have The Dark Tower 7, The Dark Tower. At number 6, we have Lisi's story, which I am just aching for an adaptation of. I really think that needs to happen sometime soon in this King-assance that we're in the midst of. Number 5, from a Buick 8, my favorite of the killer car stuff from Stevie K. Number 4, we have The Dark Tower 5, Wolves of the Calla, that is... yeah, it's really good for most of the way. Anyway, at number 3, we have Cell. Read it. It's badass. Adaptation, just okay. Number 2, we have Duma Key, one of my, probably my favorite novel from Sai King in this decade. Well, obviously my favorite novel based on the ranking system. And at number 1, we have Just After Sunset. Don't forget the honorables of Faithful, Secret Windows, but especially on writing. It is such an interesting just peek into the process of Sai King. I have been Jaime and Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors, spending way too much time there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, with all the old Fuegotainment stuff on there before you see a massive relaunch, which is still being tinkered with. So if you want to see any of the old things that I did on there on the old set, please feel free to jump on there. Trailer reactions, Tales from the Crypt coverage, all kinds of coolness. Make sure, if you have not subscribed here to The Horror Show, to do that. Hit the subscribe button, like, share, comment, all that jazz. Hit the bell so you get notifications about every Tuesday and Saturday. Now that we are jumping back to the regularity of coverage with Castle Rock being done, thank the Lord. If you want to see our full season thoughts, myself, Marsha Parker, and Cecil just put that video up this past Tuesday in place of the most recent Hail to Stephen King, like you would have normally seen on the Tuesday. But I'm so stoked about bringing you tons of fun coverage. The last video before we do the live thing about Bag of Bones is going to be all about the 40th anniversary of The Stand here on this upcoming Tuesday. Why I love The Stand. We're going to be talking about the novel, the adaptation, looking ahead to this presumed CBS All Access 10-episode series, and the tremendous Marvel comic book, which for me is still the best adaptation that has been done. I've been Jaime and Fuego. All of you have been awesome. Make sure to check out the Hail to Stephen King group. I am the sole admin on there. We post everything from, stuff about the Tower on Tower Tuesday, hashtag Tower Tuesdizzle, and yeah, all kinds of other things, whether it's Stephen King news, books that we're all reading at the moment. It's a really cool contact, and I am just very proud, humbled, and honored to be a part of it, not even to think of myself as like, you know, the din or whatever, as some have been kind enough to call me. So until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, everyone, hasta luego, sin amigos, and constant readers and viewers across the globe. I hope that we get to see one another sooner rather than later, and until that instance occurs, remember, stay scared and read Stephen King, especially, boom, Just After Sunset.